Our last international storyteller of the evening is from Iran. Mrs. Negin Hatam, who escaped Iran as a teenager due to her being a member of the Baha'i Faith, has been living in Canada since 1984. She studied chemical engineering and computer science at the University of Ottawa in Canada, which is how she's my very dear friend, and is currently working in the federal government as a manager. Negin is happily married, has 4 grown boys, and a wonderful daughter-in-law. She's not yet a grandma, but would gladly welcome it. She loves sports and fitness activities and teaches fitness classes, cardiokickboxing, Zumba, bootcamp, interval, weight training, strong, Nation HIIT. She also enjoys cooking, baking, and gardening. She can spend hours with a good book and still enjoys an engaging movie regardless of its genre. Please welcome Mrs. Negin Hatam to the stage.
Good evening, everyone. How are you doing? Okay. I'm the last speaker, so I feel that there's a little bit of low energy. Maybe you're tired, you want to stand up, stretch, just do it now. How about that? Yes? Yes. Yeah. Part of the fitness is to move and feel stretched and energetic. How's everyone feeling? Yes, just stretch. Feel good? Yes. Wonderful. Great. I'm really honored and happy to be here. As Rashmi mentioned, I'm representing a story from Iran. When I was asked to find a story to tell you, I found it very, very difficult. Iran is a land of stories and literature and art. And I was thinking, what can I find that would help me introduce the culture of Iran to you? And thanks to David, he set the stage by saying that all stories have an educational value in them. And of course, the Persian literature is full of those stories. So I actually consulted with some of my friends who are scholars in Persian literature. And we came up with this story, the story of Khosrow and Shirin, which probably a lot of you know it by the name Shirin and Farhad, which is a well-told story in many cultures. There are movies made from this story. It's not a very happy ending story, but there are a lot of lessons in the story. And I want you to remember that I want to tell the story from the viewpoint of Shirin, which is a lady. She's a princess. Her name means sweet or pleasant. But I think that her life story hasn't been very pleasant. But anyway, Shirin, of course, like many princesses, was beautiful, but not just in appearance. She was a very strong character. She was smart, she was brave, she was wise, she was independent, she had a lot of leadership abilities in her, and she happened to be the princess of Armenia. Her aunt was the queen of Armenia. So the story of Shirin starts with her reputation being carried over from Armenia to other countries, and one of those countries was Persia at the time. And imagine middle of 12th century. So at the same time in Persia, there was a king from the Sassanid dynasty. His son was Khosrow. He was the crown prince. Khosrow had a friend named Shapur. Shapur was a clever man and was an artist. So Shapur tells Khosrow, there is a princess, and tells all about the princess Shirin to Khosrow, and Khosrow is really intrigued and says, I really want to meet this princess. I think she's the one for me. Shapur tells him, no, don't do that. What I'm going to do, I'm going to paint a picture of you, and I'm going to take it to the land of Armenia. I'm going to show that to Shirin. And let's find out what she thinks about you before you go meet her. He does that. And lo and behold, Shirin sees the picture, the portrait, says, yeah, he's a very good looking man. And then she hears about his character, says, I want to meet him too. So, Khosrow starts his way to Armenia, and Shirin starts her way to Persia. Halfway in the middle of the way, they actually bump into each other. But I don't think Shahpur's painting was very good, because Shirin doesn't recognize Khosrow. And Khosrow, of course, doesn't recognize Shirin because she hasn't seen her. So they just say hi and bye, and each goes its way to the other country, and then realizes, oh, they're not there. Anyway, so they lose the chance of actually meeting each other formally. But what happens is that in Armenia, the queen dies, and Shirin, having such good character and ability to lead, becomes the queen of Armenia. At the same time, in Persia, there is a coup, of course, and the king of Iran dies, is murdered by a general, and Khosrow loses his chance to become the crown prince. So then he escapes and goes to Armenia, goes to Shirin, and says, Shirin, I really love you. I don't have a country, but let's get married. Shirin, being very smart and wise and clever, just looks at Khosrow and says, you know what? You are grown to be a king. I don't think you're going to be happy being married to me right now. So I'll give you a condition. Go back to Iran, claim your country, become the king, then I'll marry you. Khosrow thinks about the offer and says, okay, I'll accept. But with what army? I don't have anybody. I don't have anything. So he decides to go to the Ottoman Kaiser, Caesar, and tells him, can you please help me, give me some army? I want to go claim my country back. So the Kaiser of Ottoman Empire is very clever too. So, I help you under one condition. You should marry my daughter and promise me that you will not marry any other woman while she's alive. What should Khosrow do? Refuse the condition, lose the chance to become the king and marry Shirin, or even though now he can't even marry her, what should he do? He accepts the condition. He marries the daughter of the Ottoman Kaiser and gets the army, goes to Iran and conquers Persia, becomes the king. But unfortunately, at the same time, Shirin is heartbroken. What condition I put in there? Now I can't even marry him. But she's a woman of responsibility. She's the queen. She has to carry on. She has to keep the relationship between the two countries. She cannot just wage a war against Persia because Khosrow broke her heart. So the life goes on. In the meantime, there is a very normal peasant man. He's a sculptor. His name is Farhad. And he was contracted by Shirin to work in her castle. And of course, he falls in love with her. Who doesn't? So now, Khosrow, the king of Iran, hears about this love story, and he says, how dare he? So, he orders Farhad to be exiled to a mountain and start sculpting stairs up the mountain, hoping that Farhad will either, die from this hard work or forgets about his love. But Farhad is very persistent and he's so much in love with Shirin. He decides that he's going to do it. And Khosrow is defeated. He says, what can I do? So he sends a message to Farhad that, you know what? Shirin has died. Forget about her. Farhad cannot bear the weight of this news, he jumps off the cliff, and that's it. So Khosrow eliminated the rival, but still cannot marry Shirin because he's married to Mariam. But Mariam, of course, after a few years dies. Now Khosrow is free, and he's still in love with Shirin. So he goes to Shirin and says, now I'm free, let's get married, please. Shirin doesn't accept the proposal, of course. She plays hard to get, but eventually she agrees. And then they get married, and she becomes the queen of Persia. They live happily for a few years, but guess what? Khosrow had a son from his first marriage. Now the son falls in love with Shirin. I know it's a very twisted drama, but based on some true events. So what happens? The son eliminates the father and tells Shirin that although you're the queen, I order you to marry me in a week. Shirin's heart is broken numerous times. Again, she's the queen, but she's not able to even make a decision for her own life, for her own love, and for her own future. She demands to be alone in the same chamber as Khosrow. Khosrow's body is there, and says, let me just say my farewell, give me a few minutes. They give her the time. After a few hours, she's not emerged from the room. They go and check, and then find her lifeless body embracing Khosrow, and the legend says that both of them are buried together in Persia. I know it's a kind of a tragic love story. It's like a Romeo and Juliet kind of on a steroid, but there are many Shirins. I think we can all relate to the story of Shirin as a woman with all kinds of abilities and capacities and not being able to exercise those. Can I have the next slide, please? I want to tell you about more trends in the life of Shirin that transferred throughout the ages, and we can all relate to that. For women who are ahead of their time and stand for their rights and stand for the rights of all women around the world. One of them was this lady in mid-18th century, again in Persia. Her name was Fatemeh Baraghani. Her title was Tahireh, which means the pure one. Another title of her was Qurrat al-Ain, or the light of the eye. She was, despite the norm of her time, quite educated. She was a theologian, she was a poetess, and she was an activist in the right of women at the time. She was very brave for her age. She presented herself in an assemblage of all men without a veil, which was unheard of at that time. And it was so shocking for the people who were present that one of the men actually slit his own throat, could not bear seeing her without a veil. Eventually, she was arrested by the government of the time, and she was executed for her beliefs. At the time of her execution, she told them that you can kill me right now, but you cannot stop the emancipation of women. Fast forward, next slide please. 40 years ago, in a city of Iran called Shiraz, you probably know of that city, 10 Baha'i women were arrested solely for their belief in the Baha'i Faith, and they were executed by hanging one by one. The youngest was a teenager. When her mother asked the authorities to release her because she was just a child, she was told that the essay that she wrote about the freedom of speech is not written by a child. She might be a teenager, but she'll be treated like an adult. The story goes on. Is it the story of Shireen, but it's going on through centuries. This happened exactly 40 years ago in the month of June. Next slide, please. If you are familiar with the recent stories in Iran, you probably have heard of a young woman, a 22-year-old named Mahsa Amini. She was beaten to death because she was not wearing her hijab properly. And that started an uprising in Iran under the name Zan Zindagi Azadi, a women life freedom. And since then, up to now, there are thousands of women, men, children are actually going to the streets asking for their rights to be restored, asking for the freedoms that we all enjoy in North America and everywhere else. But these people are still being treated like Shireen. They are asking for their rights. Can I have the next slide, please? Friends, I was really honored to listen to all the stories that were told, and I could find a common thread in all the stories and the stories of Shireen, the stories that I presented here, that humanity in general is connected, is one. We are part of a multicultural tapestry of humanity. We come from different parts of the world. We enjoy different languages and different religious beliefs, but we are all part of the human tree. We are all like leaves of the same tree. We are all like the drops of the same ocean from the same sea. And the sooner we realize how connected we are and how the oneness of humanity is the basic principle of our Creator, we can create stories that are unlike the story of Shireen. We can realize that our prosperity as humanity, our wellness, is dependent on collaboration and cooperation, not on competition. And how unity of mankind with the beauty of tapestry of multicultural and diversity is our destiny. Friends, our story is one, but together we can create better endings. Thank you.
Negin, thank you for this beautiful story and the story within the story. Thank you so much.